Welcome to Amazing Love 2013. My name is Salem, Soni, and I'll be your host. As we do these interviews as part of our series, we had different topics that we asked different peoples, and they gave us their answers. And this interview you're about to watch is a part of our topic on marriage. So, may God bless you, and may you be encouraged. Amazing Love 2013 coming to you.
Hello. It's good to have you here. You are?
My name is Don Cairns.
And this is his better half, Debbie Cairns.
Well, it's good to have you here. And so our first question would be, tell us about your marriage.
Well, we were married, let's see, in 1991 on September 14th, so this will be our 22nd anniversary this September. And it's been just nothing but wonderful bliss the entire time.
Lying on camera. Now, there's been ups and downs in the 22 years of our marriage. I think we've grown a lot. I think in the beginning of our marriage, we were starstruck. And at least I was starstruck. I'll keep it in the eye. I know that I was like, I wanted to be this perfect wife for you. I wanted to cook for you and just have everything just perfect for you. And probably there was a little bit of, I don't want to say fakeness, but probably a little performance base going on. But I think because I could be who I am with you, I think that made it very easy to just fall right in place in our marriage. Although, because we were unequally yoked at one point, it was very hard in the very first year of our marriage. Was very hard. But wouldn't you say that after once you receive Christ as your Savior, wouldn't you think that, or don't you think that it got better? Or I believe it did.
Yes, it definitely did get better after that point. And that would have been maybe about 1 or 2 years after we were married that occurred.
Okay. So I have an interesting question in terms of, because we kind of got a story of Mrs. Debbie there, where she told us from her background, coming from a Christian home, maybe you, Don, not necessarily came up from a Christian upbringing, from what I've heard. And also, so what would you say was your perspective into marrying her? Okay, and then after 1 year after, there's this Jesus freak coming in your house, and you're like, oh my God, what's going on? You know, tell us a little bit more. How was that first? And this was earlier in your marriage. You know what I mean? This could be something that could have been really somewhat of a concern. You know what I mean? This maybe was a girl who suddenly acted very differently than the girl you dated. So how would you talk to us about that a little bit?
Well, I mean, she always was a good person as far as her morals and everything like that. I knew that she came from a church background. Mm-hmm. But there were things that we were both probably doing that obviously weren't very Christian-like, going out and drinking and to clubs and doing different things like that. Mm-hmm. And then when she started going back to church and started getting a little more serious with her walk, I don't remember it being a real big shock or anything like that, because I was there the whole time as she gradually started doing that again. I didn't quite fully grasp what it was, or I didn't understand it because I didn't grow up with that as a background at all. So it was, I don't want to say scary or anything, but it was different. I just didn't know what it came with. To me, that being a Christian or being a Jesus freak or whatever you want to say was just, to me, it was only for like just weird people or weak people. And it was, you had to be boring to be a Christian. Like you were not allowed to have any fun whatsoever. And so that part of it maybe scared me, like, uh-oh, we're not going to have any fun anymore. But as I got to know a little bit more, go into different functions that she would go to, and just listening to the message and meeting people that were normal and they weren't weird or boring or anything like that, I learned more and just realized that it wasn't a bad thing. It actually could be a very good thing. So
That's very interesting because you brought up the point of like you were a little bit kind of concerned about the fact that it would kind of dull out your marriage. You know what I mean? You guys came, you were fun, you do the drinking, the stuff, and then, oh, now we're boring. We're just going to be going to Sunday stuff. So what would you say, okay, was kind of like a methodology that you used to kind of address that issue so that you didn't get to the point where you fell into, you know, the distance and the separation. You know what I mean? Because you said that that you started going to some of her function, things like that. So what are some of the things, maybe not necessarily outward things, but inward between you two that you started practicing to do so that you kind of get connected?
That's a good question. I mean, just our interests became alike. As far as the church functions, we were involved in pretty much the same things in the church through dramas and choir and things like that. So our interests became similar, so we started spending a lot more time together doing those same interests, which were usually church-centered or church-oriented. So it enabled us to just have things in common more than before, if that makes sense.
When we were unequally yoked, yeah, it was very difficult because I wanted to go do those church functions and fellowship with other believers, and he still kind of wanted to, you know, go out to the partying in bars, and not that he was like a big drunk or anything like that, but you know, it was definitely a strain there in the first, I would say the first year, because we just didn't have the same interests until you did ask the Lord into your life. And then we did start to, like he said, do things together that we could find, that we would, we tried to find common ground so that it kept the unity in our marriage.
And so another interesting question that sometimes when I talk to couples about this is, whenever you're a couple and then as a couple you decide to move on, there are certain friends, there are certain entourages that also has to change. Because now, for example, let's say Don, some of your party friends, you can't really chill with them anymore because they become the hindrance to how, as a couple, you're trying to move. So what are some of the changes as a couple that you decided to take once you had a common ground, like you said?
Probably the biggest change was family members. Once just the way they treated us. Not that they treated us bad, but we didn't get invites to certain events because they knew that we probably wouldn't be in approval of it. Different relatives would kind of test me and invite me to do things on Sundays to see if I would do it. You know, like to go golfing or to do different sporting events that would take place of church service.
Make you choose?
Yeah, but just as, I don't know, to see if I was serious about it. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But there was definitely, I didn't really have any, I mean, maybe some coworkers maybe may have treated me differently then because they knew maybe after asking me a time or two to go out and do things and I said no, the invitations just stopped coming, which was fine with me. But, you know, because they knew that I would probably refuse. So you know, definitely there were things that I didn't get invited to.
He actually had a friend who wanted to cause division between us. I won't mention his name, but I know you'll know who this is when I said he actually came to me and said, you know, Don gets girls' phone numbers at work when he's working on shift. And it really alarmed me because I'm newly married to him, and now he's getting, you know, numbers from, which of course, you know, he says no, he didn't, so I had to believe him. But it was the difference of, oh, I know, he had said to me, he's living a double life. He said, because when he's with us, he's different, and when he's with you, he's different, and he really wants to be like us. So it was hard because like his friends so desperately wanted him to remain
that fun guy.
Yes,
yeah. Okay.
Yes, exactly. And but yet I saw a difference. You know, the transformation. So I saw the real, and I felt like maybe he was performing, not performing, but maybe just appeasing them. Would you say that maybe you would appease them, or no?
Probably at one point I would say that was probably true. I'd probably act one way at work, and then when I would go to functions with her, I mean, I would know how to act around them as well.
But there was a change that...
Oh, absolutely. Well, I'm saying in the beginning.
Yeah,
But then, you know, when I started getting a little more serious about church and learning a lot more about it, I would say that I wouldn't act that way around them. The way I acted around her in church was more of the real.
Okay.
But I would definitely say in the beginning there probably was
some acting going on. Yeah.
I think it's important to say that while we tried to find common ground in our marriage early on so that, you know, we could relate with each other, we tried to, I think what was cool is that we ended up finding friends of like mind so that we could, it was like before it was Don's friends and my friends. Debbie's church friends, Don's party friends. Once we started getting more involved in the church, we started, and going to Sunday school, we started meeting other couples, and we started then becoming friends with people as a couple, as a married couple.
Gotcha.
Like, you know, it was almost like a separate life, you know. He had his life outside of marriage, or not outside of marriage, but you know, like, was that prior to, and then, you know, my life. And so I think that was big for us to find a common, not only interests, but also friendships as well, to keep our marriage, you know, unified.
Very good, very good. So you guys have been married for 22 years this year.
That's correct.
22 years. So that's a long time, and you have had kids in the, you know.
You said that, not me.
So another thing I would ask, as a couple, how do you guys would say parent or teach your kids when it comes to relationships, when it comes to, let's say, dating, and when it comes to courting somebody to all the way to marriage? Okay, because this is kind of something we really want to address a lot, is this idea. How do you adequately speak to your kids on that transitional phase from singleness to marriage? And also how to keep that marriage successful a long ways, you know, 22 years or more like you've done.
Well, I mean, obviously leading by example is a huge thing. It's something that I certainly didn't have in my childhood. You know, I don't have any memory of my dad and mom living together. So that was pretty tough in the beginning because I just didn't have an example of what a husband was or how to treat a wife. So I would hope that our children have seen, even though it hasn't been 100% great examples, I would hope that they would see a good enough example of what it is, and the fact that we're still together is key. Our daughter, I mean, we've been blessed. She's surrounded herself with great friends, and she's grown up in the church. And what she's learned through different teachings or in the Bible, and she has a very strong understanding of you know, what marriage is, and dating prior to marriage is not a priority to her.
And I think she has a lot to say that the reason why she has those values is because she has a wonderful youth group. And even though I was brought up in a Christian church, or, you know, a Christian home, I didn't have a youth group. My youth group was my twin brother and my older brother. I mean, that was it. So was it easier for me to be able to, remember how I kind of gave my testimony of how I kind of veered away, or maybe kind of just was on the fence Christian type person. I think it was, I don't want to blame that, but it's definitely
there was a lack of support.
Absolutely, especially with peers. I mean, I think it's just awesome that we do have our kids connected in a youth group where the peers are there encouraging one another to say, you know what, yeah, how can we not do this or whatever. So I think it's very important, as parents, that you definitely have that, not only support at home where we can be open with our kids, but also to have them involved in a youth group where they will be, you know, they'll have that peer support. I think that's pretty vital right there.